Once in a while, a story comes along that can change the very fabric of culture, acting as a cautionary tale or parable of our age. And so it is with Death Note to Japan, a story of a book that can give godlike power to its user to kill anyone they wish with a swipe of a pen. Combine that with a cat and mouse game between two arch nemeses not seen since Sherlock Holmes and Moriarty, and you have a masterpiece, a manga rated as one of the best of all time. So, when the Duffer Brothers of Stranger Things announced the development of a Netflix series for Western audiences, it got my attention and hoped we would have a new interpretation to bring this story to a wider audience. But this will not be the first Death Note adaptation for Western audiences, with a 2017 movie also released by Netflix. But the movie was more derided than enjoyed by general audiences and hardcore Death Note fans alike. So, as the Duffer Brothers embark on their series development, the question is, how can they take the best from the Japanese source material while making it accessible to Western audiences? And to answer that question, we will explore a side-by-side movie deconstruction comparing scene-by-scene analysis of the 2017 Netflix movie with a two-part Japanese movie adaptation, where we will see one movie that delivers a true cat-and-mouse thriller and battle of wits, and another that leans on genre codes, effects, and undermining its antagonist. So to kick off the deconstruction, let's take a moment to outline the story each adaptation tells before we dive into the comparisons. And spoiler alerts as we jump in. Light, the antagonist of our story, is a straight-A student who comes across a book that falls out of the sky, named The Death Note. The book comes with instructions, and anyone who touches it can see and talk to its owner, a death god called Ryuk. The book gives power to its user to kill anyone whose name they write and face they have in mind. Light starts out using the book to right some local and personal injustices, but soon he has bigger ambitions, using the book to kill as many criminals as he can worldwide to create a new crime-free world order. With these acts, he is given the name Kira and triggers a global crime task force to catch him to bring back law and order. The task force is led by L, a mysterious detective with near limitless IQ. L works with local law enforcement to catch Kira and becomes convinced Light is the prime suspect. And the rest of the movie plays out with Light trying to evade L and L gathering the evidence to prove Light's guilt. Now, you would think it would be pretty easy to take this source material and make a good movie, yet to be fair to the filmmakers, they needed to squeeze in 12 manga books and 37 anime episodes of story into one theatrical runtime. And while this is no mean feat, the Japanese movie was praised by critics and general audiences, while the Netflix movie was a near unmitigated mess. So let's now dive into why the Japanese movie was more enjoyed than the Netflix adaptation, and what messes Duffers can learn from this. To start with, each movie has a different style and atmosphere linked to their differing film budgets. To its credit, the Netflix movie is beautifully shot, with an array of montages, slow motion, wide angles and close-ups, like the opening at the high school, giving it near 1980s Heathers vibes. And the close-ups of the apples that we later discover Ryuk loves to eat are beautiful to behold. And the Japanese movies are, by comparison, quite basic. There's a few panning shots here and there, but in the main it's just people talking and either trying to find the truth or cover up their tracks. And this is the problem with the Netflix movie, one of style over story substance. And it's no better exemplified than in how they treat the deaths inflicted by the Death Note. If we compare the timeline of each movie side by side, we see that both start small with deaths, where Light tests the Death Note, then later he goes big, killing large groups of people as he hones and demonstrates his power. But then the Netflix movie somewhat pauses on the deaths until a midpoint, when, like in the Japanese movie, Light instigates the deaths of a group of FBI agents enlisted to hunt him down. And the killing of the FBI agents is emblematic of how, thematically, the Japanese and Netflix movies differ in how they use the deaths to evolve Light's character. In the Japanese version, Light works within constraints and strategizes to get the names of the FBI agents by using the Death Note to make a criminal hijack a bus, in turn making one agent following him show his ID after Light says he'll try and take on the criminal. And with his name in hand, Light moves to phase 2, instructing the agent to get on a subway, and using a two-way radio, he instructs him to write the agents' names on paper from the Death Note before he himself is killed from a heart attack. Compare this to the Light in the US movie, who does the same thing and simply gets the men to jump off a building in an effects set piece, and Light himself does comparatively very little to get their names other than hacking the police database. And it's in their reactions once the FBI agents die we see a distinct difference between Light across the two movies. In the Japanese version, we can see in Light's face the joy he takes from murdering the first agent to get the names, that he was able to outwit the FBI, proving his intellect versus the best investigators. But with Netflix Light, we see someone scared about the consequences of the act, and later learn that he didn't even write the names. Ryuk did because he didn't have the stomach to do it to stop L and the FBI in their investigation. And this isn't the only occasion where the Japanese Light proves to be a more sadistic sociopath than Netflix Light. From the very start, when they take ownership of the Death Note, they show themselves to be very different characters. When Light first sees Ryuk in the Netflix version, he's terrified, banging against the door, trying to escape for his life, with a high-pitched scream that's clearly played for laughs. Yet after a short shock, Japanese Light smiles at his fortune to have his very own death god by his side, someone or something that can help him best use his intellect to create the world he wants to see. And this point of motivation brings us neatly to Light's relationship with the character of Misa, or Mia, in the Netflix version. In the Japanese version, Misa is a central character. She kills using the Death Note without a second thought and is clearly a sociopath, alongside playing her persona of an idol. Yet her downfall is her obsession with Light and allowing herself to be under his control. In this version, she is a chapter in his story, a means by which he can distract and confuse L with different sources of Death Note killings. Whereas in the Netflix version, she is in many respects the story, often by Light's side and at times leading or influencing decisions about how the Death Note is used. As a case in point, when we code the scenes she appears in across the two movies, we see it takes 42 scenes out of 106 for Misa to make a first appearance, whereas in the Netflix version she is shown from the very first scene, quite literally being too cool for school with a forlorn look as she takes part in cheerleading practice. And in the Netflix movie she appears in half of the scenes versus a quarter for the Japanese. Put short, Mia is a key player in the Death Note story in the Netflix version, the Juliet to Light's Romeo, the Veronica to his Heather's Jason Dean. And while this romance and tension between Light and Mia was probably enjoyed by some, it lessened the essence of what originally made Death Note so compelling in the Japanese manga and anime, namely the cat and mouse relationship between Light and L. In the Japanese adaptation, Light and L are intellectual adversaries, battling each other with their wits to prove the other wrong, with L wanting to catch Light red-handed with evidence to send him to his death, and Light looking to point L and the team in other directions to continue his killing spree. And like the frequency of the deaths, the number of times each character attempts to outwit the other or those around them represents the heartbeat of the story. And we can visualize this on a data timeline, where each deviation represents a twist or turn in the story, where one character attempts to outwit the other. And when they're successful, the story twists in their favour, represented by the green dots. And when they fail, it stays constant or goes in the other direction, represented by the red dots. When we look at the scenes in this way for the Japanese movie, we see something striking, that across the 28 scenes where one tries to outwit the other, the story swings in Light's favour, significantly more than L's, with 25 scenes to Light. But the moments to L are the ones that matter and represent the flaw in Light's character, which is his arrogance and ego. And interestingly, these scenes group at the start and the end of the story. Early on in the story, L broadcasts to Japanese TV that he will hunt down Kira, and Light tries to kill him on screen. With this, of course, a setup from the real L, who put a criminal, also called L, set for execution in his place to read out the announcement. And this in turn helped L to deduce that Light was based in Japan and required a name and a face to kill someone. Vital information that proved the basis of his deduction to identify Light as a suspect. And the ending is the ultimate Holmes-like mental pincer to trap Light's Moriarty in the act of being Kira, making him believe that he had killed L with the Death Note, only to catch him in the act at the end, trying to kill his own father with a fake notebook that he switched. But the real reveal and tragedy was how L avoided being killed when Light wrote his name in the death note, because L wrote his own name in the book and set a time for himself to die in 20 days. And in this we see a tragic end to a once-in-a-generation story, one where there are no winners or losers, and where the protagonist of L wins, but to do so he needs to lose his life. Compare this to the Netflix version, where we not only have fewer cat and mouse moments of wit and guile, but the ones we do have are more flashback based, wrapping up the story in a neat little bow. Like in the end scene where we think Mia has manipulated Light to try and get the death note from him, but instead it was Light all along. He was the one who used the book to get her to go to a Ferris wheel and jump off it, the one who got a guy to pull him out of the water. And of course his dad worked it all out, and they have some exchanges about the lesser of two evils. And what was this lesser evil? Why did it seem Light's father forgave him and he got away with it? Don't know. But either way, less a sequence of cat and mouse events that lead to a big reveal, and more of a ChatGPT summary of how we might explain how Light escaped unharmed by the police, by Mia, or by Ryuk. And on Ryuk, here I need to give some praise to the Netflix movie. He's a very different character in this adaptation. More sinister, more self-serving, more menacing, and clearly out to cause as much chaos as he can for his own viewing pleasure, with an excellent voice performance from Willem Dafoe, high-quality effects, and some nice evolutions from the filmmakers, like notes from other owners of the book warning Light that he's out to get him. And by comparison, in the Japanese version, Ryuk just wants to sit back and enjoy the fun. He doesn't threaten or kill people to move things along, he's just there for a good time. But sadly, this bright spot doesn't compensate for all the problems the Netflix movie has, and the cautionary tale it represents for the Duffer Brothers. A tale that suggests that while beautiful shots and aesthetics of high school drama might look cool, they can't make up for a lack of actual drama. A tale that warns about the use of deaths for effect set pieces, rather than moving the story along and being steps of character development in the evolution of a sadistic and sociopathic killer. A tale that says if you show your antagonist often scared and out of his depth, people will take him less seriously than if he's a more straightforward sociopath who will stop at nothing to realise his vision. A tale that says that while it might be a good idea on paper to have Mia be Light's equal partner in creating a new world of law and order, this might undermine his need to develop well-laid plans and strategies to distract and kill L. And a tale that in the end shows that the respect of the source material to deliver a cat and mouse thriller alongside godlike power of the manga is a better bet to get an audience than morphing it into a Heathers-like homage with fewer twists and turns than Route 66. So this concludes our deconstruction and offer of a data-driven wisdom to the Duffer Brothers, and let us hope they take it and deliver us a Western adaptation of this great story that the fans can be proud of. So what do you think? Maybe I've been too harsh in my homage for the Japanese version, and there are elements of the 2017 Netflix movie we should try and keep for the upcoming series. Drop a comment on the video to let me know. And if you liked the video, please drop a like and subscribe. Your support will make a big difference to future deconstructions and how we can use the way of data and observation to save entertainment.